Thank you for listening to Game by Design. Let me start that over. I said the wrong thing.
Could just be one game.
Thank you for listening to Games by Design, our podcast where we share our experiences with video games and discuss what makes them effective. I'm Zach Dunlap, and I'm your host for this episode. Joining me today are Nick Dunlap.
Hello.
And Aaron Bone.
Hey, hey.
This week, we're each going to take a turn sharing recent gaming experiences, then lead a discussion about game design that we find interesting. Finally, at the end of each episode, we recommend a new game for each other and you to check out. We play what we want, when we want, and we leave the news and the reviews to everybody else. So, we're going to start with Nick today. Nick's going to talk about... I don't know what Nick's going to talk about. We're going to find out right now.
Hopefully I do. Yeah, all right. So this last... Something. Yeah. I hear... Yeah. Yeah. So this week, I decided I was gonna try out a demo of a game on the Epic Game Store because it was a free demo, and I hadn't played a new release in a while. So I downloaded the demo for Immortals: Phoenix Rising. Yeah. I don't love most Ubisoft games, so I wasn't exactly expecting to love this one, but I thought it might be fun to give it a shot and, see what was different about this one. Because I knew that it was kind of a different approach. So anyways, my experience with it was that I found, maybe this was just because it was a demo, and it was trying to give me so much so fast, but the tutorial information was just so overwhelming to me, and it was throwing stuff at me so fast, and there were so many menus, and there were so many bars, and there were so many inventory slots, and I was getting new gear before I even knew what I was doing with my old stuff. But perhaps my favorite instance, though, was when I started this combat encounter with a bunch of evil demon chickens.
What?
Yeah, it's an interesting game.
Oh, so it's a Zelda game.
Yeah.
Ubisoft has a thing for chickens as well. If you play Assassin's Creed Odyssey, then you look at a chicken the wrong way, he'll come after you.
Just wow. Why is that? What is it with chickens in games? But yeah. So, anyways, I started this fight with these. Yeah. I started this fight with these chickens, and it gives me this cutscene, and then the fight starts. And the moment the fight starts, it throws up this tutorial balloon down at the bottom of the screen, and I go to read it, and I'm barely 2 words in before I've taken 3 hits from the chickens. And I was like, wait, why would you throw this on the screen? So I was frustrated because I was trying to read the tutorial information, and I was getting swarmed by chickens. So I wanted to ask you guys, how much is too much when it comes to tutorial informations and the way it's presented for you? And maybe not enough, and on the other end of the spectrum, but when do you feel overwhelmed by the game telling you how to play? Or what kind of experiences have you had with that?
Yeah. We've talked about tutorials a little bit before.
Yeah. I know we might retread a little bit of old.
Yeah, no, that's fine though. It's a good question. Well, I think part of that problem is that it was trying to give you stuff while you're still trying to play the game, you know? Like some games pause when it gives you tool tips or tutorials or whatever, especially in the beginning of an action game.
Yeah.
When it's giving you information for the first time, it'll be like, okay, pause, something you should know about.
Yeah.
Your health bar, something like that.
Yeah, and I just assumed the game would keep me safe long enough. I just assumed, it's an action game. It wants me to have fun. It's not gonna... It's gonna protect me while I'm still learning its systems and stuff.
Right.
Which it did not.
It did not. Yeah, I see what you mean. So I think part of it is that it's just trying to relay. Aaron, you talked about this in Cyberpunk, didn't you?
Oh.
It was trying to tell you stuff while you're in the middle of a game and you just don't have time to read it because you're in the middle of a combat or something.
Yes, it would have little blurbs, especially with the important information. This is new to our game. You're probably not familiar with this stuff. It would just pop up in the middle of combat, stay there for 2 seconds, and then disappear. So, and then maybe it was saved somewhere else, but never said where, Because, sometimes in games you'll have a pop-up bubble that'll just be there for a little bit, but then it'll have the option where it's like hold this button and you can go directly to the menu where this information is found. At least I've seen some other games like that.
Yeah.
But this one didn't have a prompt with it. Is it's just popped up and then it's gone. It's like, well, I hope it pops up again.
So what's you're asking? Sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
Well, I was just wondering, is that how it was in Immortals? There was just a pop up and then it went away, or there was a pop up and then it was like blocking the action, but you were still
it was
the action
right. It was right in the middle of the screen, right above my abilities. So I assumed it was important. It was like, push this button to, oops, chicken. It was the fight had just started and like all the enemies were in front of me and it popped up. It was right in the middle of the screen, really obvious. So it obviously wanted me to pay attention to it. It wasn't like up in the top left corner or something like that. It was right in the middle of everything.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah.
That's frustrating.
It was funny.
I'm kind of curious about that demo because I have the game on the Switch and I seem to remember it just having a standard tutorial where it's like, okay, here's these enemies, pause, here's how to attack, and here's how to do this. But I don't know. Maybe the demo's different and it just threw you into a flock of chicken.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know how it compares to the regular game because I haven't played the regular game, obviously.
Right.
I was playing the demo. But
I just wonder if it was like the opening little bit, or if it was like its own little experience. Like, were you still like washed up on the shore and had to like find a sword and stuff, or?
No, I had everything, and I think that's part of it. I think like I had the wings, I had the sword, I had all of my abilities already, and so like. Maybe that's just the demo being a demo and it's trying to give you like the full experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had everything.
Okay. That's definitely unique to the demo then. That's interesting where they would, I guess because they didn't want, you can play for an hour, but the first hour is boring, so.
Yeah, which makes you question why it's in the game. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a Ubisoft game. The first
well,
hour
I actually did. Like,
TV.
I played like the first hour or so, and I was like, I don't know about this game. It seems like it's trying to be all these other games, but worse, But then, like after
my feeling,
after the tutorial, after you get like the title screen, it actually opens up, and I actually ended up enjoying a lot of the game. Like, there's still issues with the game, but I don't know. It kind of comes into its own a little bit more. So
that's good.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a whole nother thought. Was like how games start to begin with.
I guess
that's
another good
as
question.
far as like what's too much or too little.
Because that was your question.
Yeah, pretty much that.
Yeah, we'll keep
I don't mind these other thoughts.
So you're saying this almost seems like kind of a mixture of the two, in that is like too much thrown at you at once, but too little time or little information to be able to process it, or to
I think it was kind of a combination of those things.
Yeah, to kind of understand, what's going on.
And maybe I was just taking it faster than I should have. But like, I mean, it threw me into a combat encounter and said, "Here's how to play combat" when I was getting attacked. So I don't feel wholly responsible for that.
Because I think you could have the tutorials too, where it's not just necessarily information, but it just takes a while for the game to let you play the game, Like, I think of some of the 3D Zelda games where it's like for the first hour, you're just like stuck kind of in this town, and every NPC you talk to gives you basic, button presses and how to look around and walk around. And, it has its own charm to it. I think it has its place. I think setting up an epic adventure in this small way. But if you've ever played a video game before, you're just banging your head against the wall and just let me fight some monsters and get out there.
And like I appreciated that I wasn't like being stonewalled and I wasn't having to like wait forever to do everything. But also I feel like, I don't know, going into Immortals, and this is maybe just because of my experience playing of my expectations going into it. I found the controls really unintuitive for some reason. And maybe it's because I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game in a really long time, or maybe it's because it looked like it was trying to be Breath of the Wild, so I kept trying to use Breath of the Wild controls, and then they wouldn't work. That was also part of it. But I couldn't figure out how to fly, use the wings, which is a central mechanic, for a really long time. And even after I figured out, I continually forgot how to do it.
Because in Breath of the Wild, you just jump and then you press the jump button again. But then in Phoenix is a completely different button for the wings.
And in Phoenix, when you jump. But the thing is, if you have two different buttons, like you jump and you dodge in the air and her wings appear. And I'm like, oh, that must be the same way you glide. But then you push a different button to glide than the dodge button, which also makes her wings appear. It just, I was really confused. Yeah, in
the actual game, it explains that. But
that might be part of the problem. I mean, like when you're making the video game itself, you're crafting the entire video game experience, and you have like a very carefully curated opening, to teach you everything and everything like that. And then the demo, like you were saying, I think it was trying to give you the full range of experience in a shorter amount of time. And it just didn't have enough time to do it at the same carefully curated, appropriate pace. And introduce things at the right rate. Something that we kind of talked about, going back to how much is too much, like you asked, when it comes to tutorials and information. We talked about this in the Crusader Kings video that we did, episode that we did a little while ago. And I think something that we kind of came away with, at least for part of that conversation, was that we liked the tutorials there because it never gave you more than you asked for, but everything was there when you asked for it. And so... And I know that it's different for different kinds of games. And if there's 3 mechanics in the entire game, then it's going to be, okay, we should probably teach you all of these right now.
All 3 of these,
But when it's and I guess it depends on the complexity and stuff like that. But but still, I really like that idea of allowing the player to determine when they're ready to move on and add new elements to their game and stuff like that, because then it shows that, okay, well, they figured out this thing, now they're naturally progressing to the next thing. You learn how to walk, then you learn how to run, then you learn how to jump, then you learn how to climb, then you learn how to fly, depending on the game.
Well, again, in the actual game of Immortals, you don't even get your wings till you're done with a tutorial. Like, you kind of build them up. It's like, oh, now you can run, now you got broken wings, now you can double jump. It's like, oh, now you've got a sword. Oh, then a little bit later you get a bow. Oh, then a little bit later, you get... So I do think, I don't know, I think the natural progression of the game does, help you understand all different elements. But if you're just thrust into it, I don't know, if a demo for Crusader Kings 3, you're just thrust in the middle of a war with allies.
And it's like... This is how you control your armies. Oh, sorry, you lost your capital.
You forgot to pause, you silly goose.
Well, there's some really interesting thoughts, and I have every confidence in that the actual game is much better when it comes to all of that.
But it's still a good question. Because some games do bungle that still, even if it's not a demo. And so it's a good thing to talk about.
I think follow-up. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead with your follow-up.
Well, I had a follow-up question that's kind of on the other end. I don't know what we're looking at for times.
You're good. You got another few minutes.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask you guys then how you feel when a game... This is related. How you feel when a game intentionally hides stuff from you that... When it withholds information about its systems, but... How do you feel? All right, this is kind of related. How do you feel when there's stuff in the game? Because this is something that happened during my experience as well. That you can interact with, but the game doesn't tell you can interact with it.
Oh.
So how do you feel when that happens? Whether it's just because you haven't gotten there yet, or just because it hasn't, you learn an advanced move before you get there, or maybe it's something that you just had no idea was even in the game.
Right.
How do you feel when games don't tell you about stuff? Or when they hide stuff that would be really useful? Is there ever a point when maybe it's an advanced strategy, but it would be really useful, but you just kind of have no way of knowing about it yet?
But you have no way of figuring it out.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. So yeah,
I
when
mean,
you were first explaining this, I think I misunderstood actually, and I thought you were talking about. I don't know. I like the idea of secrets and discovering things through the gameplay, through
Yeah.
exploring the systems and stuff like that. But I think you're talking about something else. It's just like not telling you that you could be better at this.
Yeah, not telling you that you have another option that you. Yeah.
I'm okay with a game not. I mean, I guess we kind of talked about this too, like not giving everything out at once. Like if it doesn't tell you about a certain system until later, or there's even things you can figure out. Like for example, there are in Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, there are actually a lot of mechanics in the game that the game never outright tells you how to do.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun to like discover them. It's like, ooh, I didn't know I could do that, you know?
Yeah.
Just like accidentally parry the wrong way, and then it's like, oh, now I'm shield surfing, you know?
Yeah.
But then I guess there is the other side of that. If you never accidentally figured it out and you went through the entire game, and it's like, oh, like there was this whole other level of enjoyment I could have got from this game if somebody told. Like there is one thing in the game that the game never says that you can do that I think makes it a lot more fun. And in that, in the game, you have a paraglider, and then you also have this bomb ability, and you can use the bombs while you are paragliding and just drop bombs down on people. And the game never, ever once says that you can do it. So it's only something that can be figured out with accident, like the shield. You know, other things they could be like NPCs or mini games that can kind of show you how to do it. So I think so long as there's some kind of thing in the game that eventually tells you, or that you can come across and it'll let you know. But if there's just like something you can do that the game never explains and you just have to hope that you accidentally figure it out, I think that can be frustrating.
Yeah.
I think it might depend. That's such a good point. Like, I think I feel similarly, Aaron.
Yeah.
I think about those examples specifically that you mentioned. Yeah. But I was playing Minecraft recently, and that game has so many things in it that I don't know because I'm relatively new to the game compared to everybody else who's been playing it for the last 10 years. And like, and I just learned something that was right under my nose the whole time that was better. I've been trying to get emeralds, you know, the money in that game. And so I was like, okay, cool. Pumpkins are the way to go. You grow a bunch of pumpkins, you cut the pumpkins down, and then you sell the pumpkins to these the Squidward people, and then you get money from it. I didn't realize, and it was right there on the menu, right next to the pumpkins, that the melons sell for more money, and so I didn't know that. It was right next to the pumpkin button. Every time I go and trade with these people and sell my pumpkins, there's a melon button right next to it, and I'm thinking, after that, I'm like, wow, I didn't know that was there, and I kind of loved that. I loved that, and I think it's specifically like Minecraft, like just over and over and over again I'm learning, oh, I didn't know that item existed, or that block existed, or that potential existed with this game, you know. And like it's and it's fun. I think for in this one, once again, it goes back to I only ever find out what I ask for when I'm looking for it, rather than it being dumped on my lap or forced on me. And like but I also feel the same way about Aaron's talking about with the bomb dropping thing in Breath of the Wild. Like it's more fun if you know how to do that, and you might play the entire game without even knowing that it's there. You know, but it's also, I don't know, like it's kind of a different expectation though. Like in the Minecraft game, it's kind of expected. Yeah, a half of your time with Minecraft is spent
in the wiki,
in the Minecraft wiki. Yeah, you know, online looking up how to play Minecraft, you know, or whatever. And then and that's just what you get in. That's what you're signing up for when you play Minecraft, you know. And then the other half, on the Breath of the Wild thing, like you kind of expect that it's going to teach you everything that you need to know in order to play the game, at least at some point in the game, you know. So
yeah.
Well, it's kind of similar with Dark Souls. That's another game that like you're constantly looking up how to play. At least when I play how to play Dark Souls.
Oh, really? I never do that.
See, I actually really. Yeah, sorry. Keep going, Aaron.
Well, and not in a way like one of the things I love about Dark Souls is it doesn't really, you know, tell you a lot explicitly, you know, especially with like the story and kind of what's going on and kind of how to use your character. You have to figure that all out. But then there are a few things in the game, like with how some of the weapons work or how some of the stats work, that there's a certain point that trial and error is really kind of working against your experience at that point. And it's like, oh, if you wanted to use this weapon, you should have done this stat, but that stat's now at 4 and you need it to be 40. So it's probably, probably something else.
When people,
or I was
people plan their builds way ahead of time and stuff because it's
hard. And I was talking to a friend of mine and he was talking about weapon advantages, and I was like, nobody ever said anything about weapon advantages. It's like, oh, that's this number to this side of the weapon. It's like, okay. And there are a few things with the stats it'll like have like a help thing, but this one didn't have it. It was just a number, and like, how am I supposed to know? Like this makes the weapons make so much more sense. I'm just looking at this attack thing, and so again, and I think that is kind of part of Dark Souls with the trial and error. And when I say I look things up, I'm not looking up like how to beat the game or anything. It's just things like this when it's like, what does this mean?
Work.
And so I think in those instances, just a little bit more information. I think would clear things up. That you can still have your ambiguity, you can still have your discovering, and just kind of the trial that type of game is. But at least know what some more of your tools are to work with. I don't know. Maybe there was a blacksmith that you talked to that was like, oh, I can help you, with weapon advantages or whatever, but doesn't really fit with how the NPCs work in Dark Souls, so probably not.
Right.
But, I don't know. Yeah, things like that. I think a balance of how information is doled out and the information that is available, and at least that just at some point it's accessible to the player.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we should probably move on to the next segment.
Yeah.
Are you good over there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome.
Thanks
for bringing that up. That was a good question.
Good thought.
Very good.
All right. Aaron, what do you got?
Yes. So, recently, I've been playing a little game that we may have mentioned on channel once or twice. It's called The Witcher 3.
Oh, you're playing that again. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm playing through the Blood and Wine expansion. Which is just fantastic. Just a little tangent here, but I'm just constantly in awe of that game, where just the depth of its quests and its world, and this is just an expansion, and it's better than most full games.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's like,
Nick hasn't played it yet.
No, I got a good solid ways in, and then I lost all my save files. So,
that's terrible. Did you play Hearts of Stone?
I did play Hearts of Stone. I loved Hearts of Stone.
Also I did not.
I thought it was fantastic.
Anyway, sorry, Aaron, you had a thing.
Anyway, so my experience with this game. So, again, the way that The Witcher 3 does side quests, I just think is brilliant. But I had this experience with one. There's this side quest. I guess I won't go into too much detail since Nick hasn't played it. But basically,
appreciate it.
In the end of the side quest, there is basically an option to succeed at something or to not succeed at that thing. That was kind of optional, not really tied to whether you failed or won the quest. Like, you got some kind of reward. But anyway, I totally failed that thing. And, didn't get the item. Got like a kind of different ending to the whole thing. And I had this initial reaction of, oh man, like, it should let me replay that so I can get the thing, like a lot of, I don't know, games, if you have a challenge, you keep doing it over and over again until you succeed. But then on the other hand, I kind of appreciated, like, at this point, like, it could have been believable that Geralt wouldn't have succeeded at this thing, or like kind of the ending that worked still kind of fit with the story. And again, I really appreciate that I think sometimes we see a lot of games, especially nowadays, that get bogged down in achievements, and it's just about like 100%ing something and getting all the little doodads and getting all the little possible endings, that it kind of breaks the immersion a little bit,
Yeah.
I appreciated that The Witcher is like, no, okay, like, you lost that, moving on. Like, this is your story now, And it's done that before in some other quests, it's pretty final with, what happens. And in fact, it was something I saw in Cyberpunk as well. There was one of the few side quests that seem to have this, but there was this little mini game where you're just shooting targets, and it's like a thing. It's like, oh yeah, V, come help out with this because I know you're really good at targets. I'm doing this tournament. I'm sure you'll blow away the competition. And I don't win, and it's not like, oh, you can keep coming back and practicing. It was just like, oh, well, that was the day of the tournament, so you didn't win. But at the same time, it kind of worked with the story because, like, a story, it's like, oh man, I just kind of had this crazy tragedy happened, and like he says, and in my head, it's like, oh, I'm gonna like clear my head by shooting stuff, and then he's like fails, and then the guy's kind of like, what happened? And then you have a dialogue option. It's like, oh, I guess I wasn't in the right head today. And it's like, yeah, like I like that. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, it builds character. So I guess my question with that is, I don't know, what is your experience with that? Like, do you prefer to have games, give you the option to be able to win everything at some point or access, all the info? Or do you like when the game kind of forces you down a certain track because, of an action or inaction that you've already made?
I like having the opportunity to fail, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you're getting at. Yeah, I thought that was great. I mean, going back The Witcher, there's the Crone's introduction for the first time in that game.
Mm-hmm.
That happened for me, and and their introduction was paired with the knowledge that I had just condemned a bunch of innocent people to die, and by mistake, basically, and and that was horrible.
Yeah.
But I also, it made me feel kind of sick to and first of all, that's a sickening scene anyway, because they're disturbing and terrible. But it paired with the fact that, I had just participated in the deaths of some people that I was actually hoping to keep alive and everything. And it was awful. And, yeah, so anyway, but I kept going through that quest, kept going through that failure, and it motivated it informed my relationship with the Crones for the rest of the game. And so, further experiences with them down the line, I see them again and I'm like, oh, I know what this relationship is. I hate these guys. They suck. and so, and I think that The Witcher just handles failure really well by giving you it you do fail at things, but it doesn't stop you from playing. It allows you to keep going, and often gives you new opportunities that you wouldn't have had if you succeeded. Yeah. There's a different one. I don't know exactly how it plays out, so I don't know if I want to get into it, but yeah, I think that happens frequently in that game.
I had a similar experience in that game where I did something that I thought was the right thing, and then I didn't consider all of what was going on, and something terrible happened, and I felt like crap afterwards. I just felt terrible all night long. And I seriously considered going back and overwriting my save because I just felt really terrible about it. But then I just accepted it and I kept going, and it totally informed every decision I made after that. Having this negative experience, and I didn't have a chance to it was a permanent negative thing. It wasn't something I could fix later. But but having that in my rearview mirror, as it were, informed the way I made decisions throughout the rest of the game, and I thought really enriched the experience for me. It also helped that was early on in the game.
Yeah.
For me. And I think part of the reason for that is because I just wasn't expecting the game to behave a certain way, and then when it did, I was like, oh, I have to take this a little more seriously.
What's really, really cool about this is that playing The Witcher, I think about The Witcher, making decisions in The Witcher when I'm in real life making decisions, which is kind of mind-blowing to me. It's okay, well, I learned this lesson once, and it was, I need to evaluate all of the information that I have available to me before I make a snap decision, because I learned that in The Witcher when I accidentally murdered a bunch of people, not directly, but indirectly,
Yeah.
And so I do that in real life, and that's kind of, and so maybe that's something that should be thought about, is that the fact that playing that game and having that failure in that game, or that awful experience or whatever, it taught me something, not just about making decisions in that game, but making decisions as a human being in my actual life. You know, I think about The Witcher constantly when I'm evaluating decisions that I have made or evaluating decisions that I'm going to make. And that makes me think that, like, hey, maybe this medium, especially, you know, with a game like The Witcher, has some potential to help us to actually become better at life through failing and going through hardships, you know, in these games and stuff like that. You know, I thought that was just so cool and pretty beautiful. Actually, I thought it was a neat bleeding thing that happened to me as a person as well as a player.
I think too, and I think, you know, uniquely with The Witcher as well, is that with its decisions, oftentimes there's not just one right answer. Like, there's this decision which leads to this bad thing, or this decision that leads to this other bad thing, you know, or good or on both sides. And I think something about, you know, having those negatives, I think, really enrich the story and your experience. With the exception of maybe some more final things that could happen, I think a lot of the quote-unquote bad endings to a quest can often be, I don't know, seen either way. Like, I've seen arguments for, you know, some of the quests where people are like, oh, I got the good ending, and someone's like, well, I actually preferred this ending because you know, it showed this character in this way or had this experience. Like, you know, there's like one quest, you know, dealing with, you know, the crones and the killing people and a lot of other things that happen. You know, I think I got the quote unquote bad ending, but when I heard what the good ending was, it's like, I think that ending's better. Like, I think it fits the character. I think some characters, you know, the story's more interesting if they have this kind of conclusion or if these actions happen. It adds a little more depth to it when you're not just winning and saving the day all the time.
The game doesn't pass judgment on your choices most of the time, you know, and I think that's where it messes up, is when it does. But like, it's just like, no, let's just play out the natural consequences of what you've done, and then that's why I think there's such a debate and discussion around all of these different endings to these quests, because people can genuinely see good and bad in each of the outcomes. And
something I'm thinking is that, like, when in a lot of games when something bad happens, I'm like, oh, what could I have done to make sure that didn't happen, or like, do I need to go back and fix something, or what mistake did I make? In The Witcher, though, bad stuff happens, and it doesn't really matter. Like, The Witcher, you only have control over some things, and some stuff is just going to happen that is outside of your control,
right?
And I really enjoyed that. It's like, oh, well, this is a really tragic thing that happened. It's like, but I know that the actions that I took didn't lead to this necessarily. It was other things outside of my control. And I like that it doesn't let you choose that the world's going to be happy necessarily. It just lets you choose what you do inside of that space. Right.
Kind of like real life again.
Yeah,
you know?
crazy.
I think that's kind of my thing. I'm just going to keep doing that all the time. I'll be like, well, it's like real life, so I like it. You know? Or, hey, this isn't like real life. I don't like this. But
no, it is. Seriously, I see, because the moments in that game where I, kind of what you were talking about, Nick, second guessing your decision. I was like, oh, I should have gone back and gone something different. And then you're like, whoa, wait, no, this is okay. Like, this, you know, fits the world. That's when I make a decision in life, you know, I can learn. It's like, okay, don't need to second guess it. Just accept the outcome and move forward with it.
Yeah.
And like, sometimes this happened to me in that game a lot and in real life, but more since I played The Witcher in real life, which is another one of the reasons I love this game so much, is that I would look back at a decision, whether in the game or in reality, and be like, you know, that probably was a mistake. What I did, that was probably a mistake. But it was me of that time making the best decision that I could possibly make with the information that I currently had available to me. And so, like, yes, I know better now, and I will never do that again. But I didn't know then, and I don't need to hate myself or anything. I just need to say, okay, well, now I've learned. Now I can use this knowledge going forward. And that's another thing that game taught me that I love so much.
I totally agree, and if I can just extend that a little bit more, it has made me feel more empathetic to other people and to my past self, and more forgiving of mistakes I've made. But also like looking at other people and going, well, you know, I think that what that person did wasn't great, but I also think they're functioning on incomplete information, or maybe they don't realize that that's not great or whatever. And it's like, oh wow, maybe we're all just trying our best, and bad stuff happens sometimes. It just I don't know. It has made me. I've been able to reference The Witcher to be more patient in my life and to be more forgiving of other people, which I think has been a plus.
You know, The Witcher, in spite of the fact that there are bodies hanging from trees in a lot of places you go, and people are getting dismembered and murdered and tortured and raped, and like there's a war on and there's thousands of innocent people dying and stuff like that, actually has a pretty optimistic view of humanity. You know, like it's like you have these people who do these bad things, and sure, they're bad things, but also they're probably doing it for reasons that make sense to them, and that if you understood that, it might make a little more sense to you too. You know, you may not think that what they're doing is right, but like at least you can say, well, I get that. I understand. I would probably make the same decision if I was you, you know, doing that same thing.
Yeah.
And I love that. That is just so cool.
Yep.
And that's the thing. You see reflected in the ending of that game, where it's like there's no one ending where everything is happily ever after.
Correct.
There's things where it's like, okay, well, this positive thing happened, but then you have to deal with this guy who's kind of a jerk and he's still in power. Or it's like, oh, well, we got rid of the jerk that was in power, but now we got this crazy guy that's in power. It's like, oh, but now we got a good person in power, but now they're kind of stuck and enslaved. Like, so it's
yeah.
The way it gives the options, and the way that the game supports whatever choice that you make. You know, that it's even if you led to like the death of these people, like it's still like in the character of the game, like the consequences are going forward. It's not like, I don't know, when I was playing Skyrim and I'd do these things that seem like they have, you know, world affecting consequences, and the NPCs don't really care, you know. Or you know, you chose one thing and want to do another thing, and like there's consequences within the scripted part of this certain quest, but once that script is over, you know, it's not really affecting anything else. Whereas like in Witcher, I remember you know, certain romance options you have in the game. I, you know, made a choice, and there was a certain point in the game, just kind of because of the quest that it was at, where it seemed like the game was pushing me towards this other romance option, and I had this feeling, like, oh no, like what did I do? Like, this is clearly the intended way, you know, this and this. And there was like a little bit of a moment in that decision where I was like, oh, like, should I go back and play it this way? But then like the game like shifted. It's like, no, like Garrett made this decision. This is his, you know, partner throughout the game, and continue to add dialogue and reference and everything to like support that this was really a decision established in the world. And it's like, no, that's good. That fits. Like that still goes with the narrative.
Yeah. It's so good. It's fantastic. Man, that game.
Yeah. I know this question basically just talking about how good The Witcher is, but I think
but it really is.
and you know, it is, but I think just from just a look at game design in general, I think, just really seeing, I don't know, so many of these games go the achievement route. I think it really does weaken the narrative. Like, I don't know, think of game like when you have a mission and then you have these optional objectives to do things like a perfect way or do things like a better way, you know? It always, I think it hurts the narrative, because if you don't, you know, hit those, then it's like this incomplete thing, but not really, but it doesn't affect anything else. It's just you're checking off boxes, you know, and it's just you're I don't know, trying to get some award. Like I don't know, all these like on PlayStation you have like platinum trophies, and it just means you like 100%ed the game or got all the trophies. And I never really understood. It's like, oh, get that trophy. It's like, well, like the trophy doesn't do anything for you in game. Like, it's just it's like, wow, you shot 100 birds, you know, in this area.
You should be proud of yourself.
I don't know. I guess it's taking like an arcade element and putting it in like a story-driven game, but it's...
I don't know if it really works for me. I think that it's kind of... I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of achievements in general. I usually turn off notifications on Steam because they're distracting. And then also they make me do unnatural things sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, hey, you know, if I could die in this certain way, I could get an achievement. You know, if I can die in this ridiculous, like I'm playing a game so now I'm playing this game and I'm trying to die. That's not a natural way to approach anything. You know, I mean, with some tragic exceptions, but like, you know, like it makes you do weird things, I think, and it kind of ruins the immersion, like you're talking about, and it also kind of ruins the value of the experience in the first place because you're not treating it as if it has any kind of meaning outside of being about winning points or trophies or things like that.
Also, half the trophies are just playing the game and getting to a certain. It's like, you beat the tutorial. Here's a trophy. You know.
Wow, thanks.
Wow,
I feel very accomplished.
I should tell my friends.
I think achievements on one hand, and I think another thing sometimes games have an issue with is setting up what seems to be a difficult dilemma, but then just smoothing things over anyway. Like, I was recently today I was playing the game The Outer Worlds, different from Outer Wilds, the game we're talking about. This is a Obsidian space Fallout, basically.
Space Fallout.
It's basically Fallout in space. And there was this certain decision where it was like, okay, I could do this one thing which would negatively affect this group of people, or I could do this thing which would negatively affect this group of people. And it was like a tough decision. It was like, oh man, like that's tough. And so I chose to negatively affect this other group of people because my NPC that was following me around suggested it. And I was like, okay, well, you seem good. And then I was like, okay, so I have to live with these consequences. These people are probably going to be hostile to me because the game it's set up, like certain people can become friendly, certain people can become hostile. And I was like, okay, this will be interesting. But then there's a second quest where it's like, oh, like, all you have to do is go to this guy, convince him to leave, and then these people will be friendly with you again. It's like, well, okay, well, that kind of destroys, the point of this decision you had to make. And it's like, oh, everyone's good. It's okay.
Well, this goes back to that conversation we have over and over again throughout this podcast, which is like, we like choice. We like freedom of choice, but we want to have consequences.
Yeah.
Consequences, yeah.
Yeah. Realistic
and if you can just like
consequences.
Yeah.
What was that?
You can just undo them afterwards. Like, oh, meaningful choice, but if I pay this guy, my reputation switches. Like, what the?
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
It's okay for your player to feel bad, game developers. It's okay if the player experience negative feelings based on their choices. Like, that deepens the experience, that connects them more to the world. Because I did feel really bad when I thought this was going to happen. It's like, oh, these people were nice to me, and now I'm screwing them over. Like, what's happening? It's like, oh, well, I could just do this thing, and it's nice. And so there's like a part of me that was like relieved because I didn't have to deal with it. But then it's a shallower experience, and that was disappointing.
So I think in order to have the highs and the elation and the joy and the satisfaction from a game, maybe you just need to have the potential to fail just as much, and to have the lows and the disappointment and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, as the range goes up, it's kind of got to go down as well.
You can if it's only ever up, it doesn't mean anything.
Then it's then it's Skyrim, where everyone's telling you you're the coolest person, and
right out the gate.
And you can persuade any guard, and you can
I like that. Yeah, it's just a law of opposites. It's like, in order to really feel the highs of a game, you kind of have to experience some lows.
Yeah.
And the greater the contrast, the more fulfilling the experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a good takeaway, which is good because we need to move on to our next segment. But
yes.
Yeah, but that was cool. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron.
I like that a lot.
Good thoughts.
I'll be thinking about that for a while, I think. I'll be thinking about that when I'm running my D&D game this week.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll let you guys mess up somewhere.
Nice.
Anyway, so here's my thing. Here's my segment today. So often when I play a video game, and it could be kind of anything. I was thinking about RPGs, but this is so many things. I find myself both amused and really annoyed when I can point a gun or a weapon at somebody, at their chest or their face or something, pull the trigger or stab them or whatever, and then they're fine. You know, like they walk away, you know, with a little bit of a dent in their health bar, but like there's no mechanical difference, there's no physical or anything. They might even have blood spraying out of them, but then they just keep walking away as if nothing had happened, you know. And anyway, that's funny, but annoying. And so, you know, so what happens a lot of the time is that the weapon I was using didn't have the right damage rating, you know, it didn't have like the right output, you know, it wasn't enough to kill them or anything like that. Or their level was too high or something like that. So yeah, so today I wanted to chat a little bit about points, health points, damage points, stamina points, perk points, whatever kind of points. That's kind of where this was going. So my question is this. As I mentioned, I find myself frustrated when I'm playing a game which relies on damage and health points and other things like that. Because I think, and not always, but sometimes, because I think it's because they make the game world act in such a way that is both unbelievable and unrelatable. Because I live on a planet where if you get shot with a shotgun to the chest, you're gonna go down, and that's the end of it. You know, like that's it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the planet I live on. And so it's weird to be throwing fireballs or dropping mini nukes in Fallout on people or whatever, and or shooting people repeatedly with an assault rifle or something like that. And it doesn't do that. So how does it affect you guys when the things that you do are tracked by points or other abstractions? I guess abstractions is the key word here. You know. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because on one hand, I think the reason points exist is to, you know, up the challenge of combat. You know, if everyone just went down in one hit, you know, combat wouldn't be very challenging. And I guess some games...
Except you should go down with one hit too,
I mean,
you know?
like if we're talking about the range high and low, like if everyone else goes down in one hit and you go down in one hit, like we've expanded our range of failure and success, right?
Yeah,
That's true.
It's not the right experience that a lot of these games are going for. Like if that happened in Doom, for example, or whatever, it wouldn't be the kind of game they were trying to make. But I'm sorry, Aaron, you were talking.
No, but I guess you know, I'm okay with it if there are, I don't know, like if you headshot somebody, I think that should be an instant kill most of the times, and things with guns. You know, maybe I could believe like, oh, they have body armor or you know, something. But yeah, I get annoyed when the difficulty of a opponent in a combat situation is simply just their health bar goes up. You know, I think they refer to that in the, you know, game world as being tanky. You know, it's just take hit after hit after hit.
Yeah.
Or spongy or something.
Yeah, tanky, spongy. You know, it's yeah, it's kind of annoying. And I mean, usually to that extent they have a lot more hit points than you have, so it's not balanced. But I think there have been some games that have handled that well, because yeah, like you need a challenge in combat so you feel threatened, but maybe it'd feel cheap if you just had like half a health point, you know, or whatever. One game I played that I thought handled that in a really unique way was Sekiro, the From Software Dark Souls in Japan game. Where basically every enemy, or at least most of the enemies, had, instead of health points, it was like a guard point. And basically, once you broke their guard, they'd be killed in one shot. And that's basically how you
get around their defenses. And
that's how you were attacked too. So if you were really good at the parry and counter, you could break their guard immediately, you know, and get in. Otherwise, you're wailing on them for a while until the guard is broken, and then you have to you know, get in there. And you know, it being a Dark Souls like game, you die very easily, you know, in those situations as well. So it still balances a challenge. So I don't know. I think it's a mechanic that at this point I'm kind of used to see in games. But I think it is like when a game finds a creative way around it, it's more interesting, and it's like, ooh, that's cool that they did that.
Yeah, at least the Sekiro example makes a little bit more sense.
I have a thought.
Sure.
And that's, like, I agree with you. I get frustrated when I shoot someone and they don't go down in the game. And the Sekiro example doesn't seem to bother me as much, even though it kind of seems like it's just a hit point system, but recontextualized.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, it's still an abstraction in a way.
Right.
But, like, I think the difference for me is I got a general idea how guns work in real life. And when you shoot someone with a gun, they go down. Like, that's kind of, I don't see that happen all the time. It's not like I have a ton of personal experience with it, but, like, this is something that makes sense to me, and that
or at least it'll affect them.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
they don't just keep running around.
So, like, so if you don't want the person to go down, I guess my solution, I don't want to propose a solution. If you don't want the person to go down in one hit, don't give me a gun. Give me an airsoft gun or a paintball gun or something that makes sense. Because if I'm holding a gun that fires off this, explosive, there's this explosion and this shard of metal is flying through the air at ridiculous speeds, and it goes into them and they don't fall down, that's weird.
Yeah.
But if I'm playing Plants vs. Zombies and my pea plant is shooting peas at a zombie and it takes 10 peas to knock down a zombie, I'm like, sure. I don't know how pea plants work in real life, like, maybe that, so I think the
Not
issue,
like that.
yeah, no, I mean, but these are fictional fantasy characters. I don't think everything should just replace guns with pea plants, but, like,
so long as it's not human and the weapon's not lethal.
And it's not a bullet to the brain,
But I think the issue is that, like, I have some kind of this is how it goes in real life, and it feels like the way it goes in real life. Like in Sekiro, it's like, okay, maybe that's not exactly how fighting with a sword works, but I can understand the concept of you have to break somebody's guard before you can kill them. Like, if they're blocking your blows, like, that makes sense. Now, if you were just wailing on someone, like sometimes happens in even Dark Souls games, and you're just chopping through them with a sword, that's a little weirder for me, because you're just, like, wailing on them until they fall down.
Of course, in Dark Souls, they're usually some kind of undead thing anyway. So.
Yeah, that's... Yeah, you've got
it's different.
some suspension of disbelief and some fantasy there. But, like, when it's something that behaves so closely to something in real life and then doesn't do something really important about that thing in real life, like guns kill people in real life, that's I think where the problem appears for me, is when it's close enough to real life to evoke, like, my real life experiences, and then doesn't actually deliver on that same experience.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. I'd like to expand this out a little bit more, because we've been talking specifically about the combat. So, because that's what I brought up. But maybe more generally, have you ever played a game that and had your experience with the game enhanced or improved by using points or scores or some kind of abstraction? It could be combat, it could be something else. Do you think that it was better because it had an abstracted representation of something instead of something more specific?
Something that comes to mind is it simplifies some things a lot. So, like, I don't know, I enjoy not having to think in some games if I'm not focused. Like in The Last of Us, for instance, I have a health bar.
Yeah.
And I'm not really playing The Last of Us because I want to focus on, is Joel's left arm hurt, or is his right arm hurt, or is he bleeding out? It's like, I just want
that kind of game,
and I do want to get some of the tension, and so, like, it does a serviceable job. You get a health pack, you patch yourself up, you have a health bar. But I'm there for the story, and so, like, that's not what I'm focused on.
Right.
So, like, I think that abstractions can be serviceable in the background sometimes. I get a little frustrated sometimes when they're the focus of the game. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think most of the time it only really bugs me if it is, like, really excessive, or I don't know, maybe those games where, like, I guess this, kind of more traditional RPGs where, like, every action is accompanied by some number or some stat or some, something on screen, some words or numbers. I can get annoying, but I mean, I don't know, even Witcher kind of has that. It doesn't really.
It does,
bug me. It's. I don't know. I think again, like it's interesting when a game has a way around it, but it's such a just kind of an established idea of video games. Like I feel like I almost expect it, you know. So it's like, oh yeah, I expect to have health, or I expect to have, you know, this thing to show my stamina or my experience, or you know, whatever. Well, if health, you know, I think, you know, there are ways around a health bar too. I think in the Uncharted games, whenever you're wounded, your screen just kind of gets more fuzzy, you know, depending on how hurt you are. And then when you're like on your last leg, it's like black and white and flashing, and it's like, okay, I understand. Like I am in danger of dying, you know, without seeing a bar click.
And in the Uncharted ones, it's sorry, what was that?
No, same without the health bar. It's like clicking down incrementally, like you can feel the effect.
Yeah, and I mean, like in Uncharted, like it's still an abstraction, you know, like, but I think that they get away with it in Uncharted by the, what did the developers say? It's like his luck is running out.
Yeah, it's like because he never actually takes a bullet until the last bullet that actually kills him. You'll notice like he tends to like. None of them actually hit him until the last bullet, and that's the one that hits him, and that's when he goes down,
dies. So it's not like he's getting riddled with bullets and walking off. They're just his luck is getting whittled away.
Getting hit is okay.
Yeah, it's this abstract danger meter, which you know functions like a health bar.
Which
So, I mean, I guess all games are abstractions. Like I don't know, games are always kind of, you know, messing with stuff. It's not you know, just this you know, new reality that you just experience. It's always kind of cheating or trying to give you information that the character may not know, you know, so that you can function. I don't know, I guess, do you have an example of a game that doesn't really use much abstraction?
Well, I do think that you're right, and that like most of them do. In fact, I think that I'd be really hard pressed to find one that doesn't. I don't think that any of them don't exist.
I mean, like having an inventory is like an abstraction, you know, because
the character you're right,
realistically be able to carry all of that.
Yeah, so like, well, with that then, like, since, you know, the whole, it's all kind of built on abstractions, you know, in a certain way. All of video games kind of are, and even board games and tabletop games and things like that are. Like, what, I guess the real question is, like, what makes a good one? What's an effective use of it, and when does it start to become, like, not fun? Oh. Sorry. Yeah, that's my main question, I guess.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But they are comfortable. Like they're everywhere, and so like let me think a sec.
And I guess if I want to try to answer your question a little bit, Aaron, my experience is that generally. I just like the ones that make things behave the way that they're kind of supposed to in real life, you know? And so if the effect is that it's different or wrong somehow, you know, then I start getting kind of annoyed, you know? And like, I don't know, it's kind of like what we talked about before, like, it doesn't matter too terribly much if everything is realistic or focused on realism in a game, because you know, because every game has a focused experience, an intended experience that it's trying to deliver. And so, I guess it's just, you know, if it's about that, if the experience that the game is focused on is so abstracted and so. And maybe just abstracted in such a way, I should say, because like you said, everything's kind of abstracted. But if it's abstracted in such a way that it's just confusing or unbelievable or unrelatable or weird, then I think that's really what it is for me.
I think there's different kinds of abstractions, and different abstractions can appeal to different people.
Yeah.
I mean, like, combat could be abstracted a billion different ways. Health could be abstracted a ton of different ways. And maybe some abstractions work better for other people because they evoke different experiences a little bit more than other abstractions do.
Yeah.
And so, like, while I think abstractions Yeah. Yeah. And if the focus of the game is an abstraction that you're not comfortable with, like people don't die when you shoot them with a bullet.
Right. Because that's what I'm kind of getting at.
Yeah.
If it's a first-person shooter, and so the focus of the game is the experience of shooting things,
Mm-hmm.
and then you shoot things and it doesn't work like
Yeah.
it works in real life, then it's kind of like, well, what's the whole point of this? Like, because like I'm not getting any kind of experience except for this weird, unreal, unbelievable, unrelatable kind of experience, you know? And so like I don't expect a first-person shooter to simulate in a really realistic way nutrition or or even first aid or anything like that, because it's all about
It's a first-person shooter.
It's a first-person shooter, not a first-person surgeon simulator or a first-person cooking game, you know. And so like since that's, I think, you know, whatever the experience of the game is trying to be, then like I kind of want it to do that. What's the word? Sincerely, honestly, genuinely, authentically.
Yeah, like a little less abstracted in some things than others. Yeah.
I think it was I don't know, one of the developers at Nintendo. I think this was during a conference where they were talking about making Breath of the Wild, but they basically said the object of game design is to be able to lie really well. that basically is like there's this abstract thing. You're dealing with codes and, you know, polygons and, you know, algorithms and things, and you have to be able to present it in such a way that you're, you know, lying that it's this new world, you know, that it's this experience or, you know, things.
Yeah, you're lying. I think you're lying in the same way that you're lying when you tell like a fictional story. You know, like you watch a movie, you know it's a lie. You know a video game is not.
Or like, you know, you when you're
Right,
manipulating the physics in the games, or some, you know, some of the other abstractions, you're dealing with this abstract thing and trying to hide the fact that it's an abstraction, basically.
Gotcha. I think that what I like about this whole idea of using, to quote something obscure, in V for Vendetta, I think it's the graphic novel that says this. The difference between, they were talking about politicians and artists, is that a politician will use the truth to tell lies, and an artist will use lies to tell the truth, you know. And I think that, you know, forgetting the politician part, because that's not really what I want to get into here. It's the idea about using fictional or fantastical or you know, representative or abstract things to draw attention to ideas, or to challenge ideas, or to present information, or to do some, you know, to do art, basically, to make art, which will be valuable to the people because it reflects reality, or because it helps you, because it lets you look at reality through that mirror and like see it in a different light, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I got kind of rambly there because I was arguing with the computer. But
No, you're good.
But if you guys had anything else you wanted to say, go ahead.
No, I think I agree. That's pretty much it.
I like that. Yeah, and I think we've seen that a good game, like you mentioned with The Witcher or other games that, you know, stick with you. That, you know, this game was able to use a lie or use fiction to show truth. And it's a truth that is true, you know, even outside the game. And so I think that an effective game, is able to use that artistic process effectively.
Cool. Thank you. Well, that's all the time for my segment. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good questions.
That was a good,
Yeah,
good discussion.
those were all really. I liked all those questions. Those were fun from everybody. I mean, you know, all different things. So this is our final segment today, and it is our Think of a Good Game segment, where we all recommend a game that we have enjoyed in the past, or at least found interesting, and want to let each other know about it, so that it's on our radar and also on the radar of our listeners, few though they may currently be. So we'll start with Nick. Do you have a good game that you want to recommend?
I would do that.
Or a game. Doesn't necessarily have to be be good, I guess.
Think of a good game.
You can recommend a bad game if you.
Great. Let me think a sec. No, we'll keep it positive. I have been enjoying Rain World recently.
Oh yeah.
Which is actually I did not write the developer down, so I don't have that off the top of my head. But Rain World is a survival game about being a slug cat, and I think it's great. I think it has some really fun ideas. It's kind of like it's got like this ecosystem. It's kind of live all the time, and so everything's moving around in real time, and predators and prey are reacting to each other in real time. It's a lot of fun. It's very challenging, but I'm really enjoying it. So I'd give that I would recommend considering it, or at least looking into it.
You said you're a slug cat?
You are a slug cat. Yes.
Oh.
You know, a slug cat.
Like what? Like what kind of perspective is the game? Like what do you?
Oh, it's a side scroller 2D platformer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
I wouldn't think slugs would be good at platforming.
Yeah, they're not. It's great.
Is that the point?
It's kind of challenging. I mean, it's got cat hands.
Interesting.
But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I've been having a really good time with it. It's challenging, and my relationship with it is not unlike that of Dark Souls, where I play it for a while and go, "This is hard," and then go do something else. But I love Dark Souls as well, so there's that.
Yeah, the Dark Souls
sure I'll be
side scroll slug cats.
Yeah, it's not quite Dark Souls, but I'm sure. But I think it's great, and I'm sure I'll be bringing it up in the future. I've had some interesting experience with it so far, and I'm confident I will continue to. So yeah, Rain World.
Rain World.
Mm-hmm. Rain World. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Aaron, what do you got?
Yes, so I recently discovered this game, and after I discovered it, I played it for about 10 hours, and
Wow.
really fallen in love with it. It's a game I mentioned to you guys before, but Nier Automata.
Yeah.
It's such a weird game, and like it's just weird, charming. So it's this game. It's by Square Enix and Platinum, and it's kind of hard to say what type of game it is because it constantly changes the game style. At one moment, it's kind of a rail shooter, and the next one it's third-person open world. Then it's like a isometric hack and slash, side scroll kind of thing. Like I don't know. It always shakes it up, and it does it so smoothly. Like it'll just move, and the camera will just kind of tilt over. And now you're playing it like this, or kind of move up, and now it's like this, or you'll discover like this new mechanic, and then that kind of opens up its own gameplay. So that variety and the controls and the action and everything is just really tight, really smooth, and so it doesn't feel jarring, or it doesn't feel, it just keeps moving, which kind of, I don't know, makes it work. It's just like, oh, it's the same game, it's just another way to look at it, or it's another thing to do in this game. It's just really weird and charming. Like it deals with robots and androids, and kind of has these existential questions. The music is really weird and really cool, and goes with the action well, and there's a ton of variety to it. I don't know. I just love it. There's a lot of, at least at the beginning, there's a lot of quests that are just kind of fetch quests. And there's a point where you don't have a super fast way to travel around, so there's a few times it's like going back and forth between certain points to finish a quest. But I just think it's really charming. It's really fun. It's got cool action, cool characters, kind of weird. It's a weird kind of Japanese anime thing. Like your main character's kind of dressed like a French maid for no reason, but it's
No, the reason is that it's a Japanese anime.
Exactly. It's the anime.
It's got a reason.
Okay, so you are a combat android. I don't see how a skirt is beneficial in that. But... anyway, Nier Automata. Good game. I think you guys would like it.
Awesome. Cool.
Sweet.
Thank you. Well, my game, I hope I haven't mentioned this one before. But if I have, it's still good. Ronin. Have I told you about Ronin, Aaron?
I don't think so.
All right, Ronin is this 2D platformer action game, and you play as this woman who rides a motorcycle around killing people off her list, because she has like this list of people that have wronged her family, and she needs to go kill them all. And it's a pretty short game. I did it in just a few hours, and but it's neat. What I really like about it is that it's this interesting blend between like real time and turn-based action. And so like the idea is that when you enter the combat scenes, you jump. Your movement is jumping. You jump to move, and then you'll like have a certain distance that you can move in the air before your turn ends, and so you're suspended in midair at the end of your turn, and then you look around, and then you see everyone who's trying to shoot you and what everyone else is going to try to do, and so then you kind of have to like think about what your next move is going to be while you're in midair, you know, and then you make your move, and then everything happens all at once. All the guns go off, all the movement happens, and then it freezes again, and then everyone takes their turn. Or well, then you take your turn. It's just a single player. It's a lot of fun. It's so much fun actually, and it's simple enough that it's not too long, and it's a simple idea, so it doesn't overstay its welcome or anything. It's just fun. And it was challenging and exciting, and it was a good time, and I liked it a lot.
Nice. That was Ronin, you said?
Ronin, yeah, Ronin. It's I can't pronounce the developer's name because it's Polish, and I never learned how to speak Polish. But the
You really?
I only know like 3 words in Polish.
Usta.
It's
Now I know. Reference right there.
Yeah, right. Wow. But so the studio, it's an indie studio called Flying Wild Hog, and it's a Devolver Digital publisher game. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to do all the names of the developers. It looks like Thomas, but it's got a Z in there, so I don't know exactly. And then the next one has got too many consonants for me. So, but it's awesome.
Good.
And
you just
totally recommend it,
just get that one from Steam, or?
Yeah, it was on Steam. Yeah.
That's a cool one. I played a little bit of it. It's hard.
It's stylish. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's like this kind of... Yeah, it's neat. It's just
cool.
It's best experienced, I think. It's fun. It's not that expensive
Awesome.
either, because it's a really small, pretty condensed experience. So it's a cheap one.
Nice. I'll have to check this out.
Well, cool. That's our episode this week. So thank you guys for your input and your questions and your experiences, and
thank you, Zach.
Yeah,
thank me. Well, you're welcome, Emily. So next time Nick will be hosting, and he'll have some mystery topic, and presumably I don't know. We'll see how this format goes. We'll see how it goes. But next time Nick will be hosting, and then the episode after that is our monthly special episode where we talk about a specific game, and that's going to be the Outer Wilds, as we have discussed, which we're all playing through. So
yeah,
cool.
Get back to playing it.
I know I gotta finish it. Yeah,
I gotta play it.
I've hit a wall. But yeah. So thank you guys. That was fun, and we'll do this again soon.
All right, sounds good.
Cool.
All right. Ciao.
Bye.
Later.